Unlock your potential with the Graduate Certificate in Arts Entrepreneurship from the Weizenhofer Family College of Fine Arts at the University of Oklahoma. In partnership with the prestigious Price College of Business, this innovative program is expertly designed for the aspiring arts entrepreneur, blending your creative and artistic talents with the business knowledge, skills, and strategies needed to successfully launch and manage arts-related enterprises. Affordable and fast track, you can achieve this transformative education remotely in less than 12 months. To learn more and to apply, visit ou.edu/finearts. As a listener of Conversations on Dance, we know you love the art form. But if you are an audience member, have you ever wondered what it would be like to try a ballet class? We know that stepping into the studio as a ballet enthusiast can be very daunting, but fortunately, Art Emotion has created a safe space for all dancers, from pre-professional through to adults. Art Emotion was founded in 2015 by former Ballet West dancers Alison DeBona and Rex Tilton. Art Emotion's popular adult summer intensive program returns this May 27th through June 1st. This program includes advanced, intermediate, and beginner classes with no prior dance experience needed for the beginner level. Let Art Emotion be the bridge between the audience and the studio. Come dance this summer. For more information, visit artemotionballetschool.com or click the link in the description of this episode. I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
Today on the Conversations on Dance podcast, we are joined by Alastair Macaulay, critic and historian of the performing arts and former chief dance critic of the New York Times. While Alastair is no stranger to the podcast, today we get to delve into the history of numerous rare Balanchine ballets. Ahead of Alastair's program at the New York Public Library on the topic, he gives us a preview of what audiences can expect, what films will be shown, and gives us the backstory of some of these works that were only seen a few times. Plus, he tells us about some of the works that aren't able to be shown and why. If you are in the New York area, don't miss Alastair Macaulay on Balanchine Rarities on May 6th at 6 p.m. at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. Reserve your spot at nypl.org or click the link in the show notes.
Alastair, welcome back. I have no idea how many episodes you've been on at this point, but you are one of our most welcome guests, and we are stretched across more time zones than typical. It's 8:20 in the morning for me. What time is it for you?
It's 4:20 in the afternoon for me.
But we made it work, and Rebecca's smack in the middle. So
Yep.
Here we are. We've brought you back on to discuss another one of your amazing collaborations with the New York Public Library about to come up. And yeah, I think you could just tell us a little bit about what you are preparing for and what audiences and attendees can expect from your upcoming presentation.
Well, thank you for asking. Last year I was in New York a few times, and I knew I'd have a little spare time around February and March last year. So I suddenly thought, I've always wanted to look at the films the library has. I've never looked at them, of various forgotten or neglected Balanchine ballets. And so I drew up a list looking at the library catalogue and had one seminar that I invited all the former dancers and critics and so forth who could come along. So I think there were about 15 people watching with me. And not only that, and we were there for about 3 hours looking at rare Balanchine material. On the whole, the criterion was ballets that fell out of New York City Ballet's repertory, certainly before my time at the New York Times, 2007. And on the whole, ones that Balanchine let fall out of repertory during his own lifetime in 1983. I stretched the rule in 3 cases because I just thought it would be very interesting. And I'll tell you what the 3 cases I have been considering are, and I'm still considering 2 of them. But you have to look at the videos to make up your mind. One I'm not going to show, you have to see why it might not work. The one I'm not going to show, but I wanted to see, was the 1981 dance that Balanchine made for the Tchaikovsky Festival for the Garland dance of the Sleeping Beauty. And he made it on its own. And I remember it being so transporting. We just couldn't believe that this was the Garland Dance of Our Dreams. And I love Ashton's, and I now love Pettipa's, which I didn't then know. Balanchine's is even greater. And of course, even more tellingly musical. So I thought, let's look at it as it was then, before it was co-opted into Peter Martins's Sleeping Beauty production. Was there a difference? Now, my memory is that on stage, in performance, it was yet more wonderful, and I would love to know why. Unfortunately, the video just shows you it in rehearsal, and you keep seeing ballet mistresses coming and then interrupting the students and getting them at the right place. So it's not really very satisfactory to look at. Something I may show, curiously, is very far from a rarity, is Serenade. And Michael, you may remember when I showed the presentation in 2015 or 2016, whenever it was, that I produced some footage of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo doing Serenade in knee-length skirts by Lutza. I think there's 5 minutes from 1940 and 5 minutes from 1944. And sometimes the choreography is different there. So in a way, that is a rarity because you're seeing a serenade you didn't know. So I'm considering that, and the footage, though it's silent, is good. Likewise, there's about 4 minutes from Ballet Imperial, which you may know as Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 2. You may well know the most legendary step it used to have when it was young was double saut de basque for the ballerina. In the third movement. And I believe people used to ask Meryl Ashley about it, and she just, the great virtuoso of her day would just say, you can't do it. There isn't time. As far as I can tell, the third movement had a slower tempo, and that's why it could be done. I've seen it done at the Royal. And basically, you now see, let me see, the ballerina going single turn, double turn, hop, hop, hop in attitude, and then she travels back and does it again, single turn, double turn, hop, hop, hop in attitude. And it's very exciting like that. But it used to go single saut de basque, double saut de basque, hop, 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 single saut de basque, double saut de basque, hop, 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 in a tutu with a powdered wig.
So I was going to ask what the costumes were, because American Ballet Theater just did their version. They do it in tutus, the version that we do in Miami City Ballet does and New York City Ballet does is in a long skirt. So these are tutus that you're seeing in this version.
Yes, and I've seen the Royal do that, and I think Pacific Northwest does that too, and maybe Pacific Northwest does saut de basque. I can't now remember. But I've certainly seen the Royal, not recently. The Royal did that in 1985 and again in the 1990s. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it's curious, and it is a legendary step. And since everybody's heard about this legendary step, the person who perhaps was even more legendary in it than its creator, Marie-Jeanne, was the person who did it next, who is Mary Ellen Moylan. And she is on silent film in Chicago doing it with the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo around 1943-44. And in a nutshell, you see her against this amazing set of St. Petersburg in the background, in a tutu, blazing away, doing single saut de basque, double saut de basque, and you think, oh, I see why this was an important step. My God.
Right.
How cool.
It will just be a little tantalizing glimpse. But to give you the range of the other ballets I want to show, we can go back to 1928. A month after Balanchine made Apollo, he made something for Diaghilev called The Gods Go A-Begging. And I think it's to an arrangement of Handel music. And on the whole, it was forgotten pretty damn quick, and other people choreographed that score. Ninette de Valois made her version of Gods Go A-Begging. But Wojciechowski from the Diaghilev Company was around London for a while, taught it to the young ballet Rambert, and Hugh Lang learnt it. He became Tudor's great interpreter, and he moved with Tudor to America in 1939, 1940. And at some point, he taught it to Nora Kay when they defected from ballet theatre to New York City Ballet in the early 50s. And so you have this strange spectacle from Jacob's Pillow of Nora Kay, never associated with Balanchine, though she actually danced quite a few Balanchine roles, but mainly known as a dramatic Tudor and Robbins ballerina. But there she is doing the Gods Go A-Begging pas de deux with Hugh Lang. And it's done in, I think, maybe in the open air, I may be wrong, at Jacob's Pillow. And the wonderful archivist from Jacob's Pillow, Norton Owen, has fitted it to music. Not exactly, but it feels very satisfying.
Right.
So that's the oldest one I'll be showing. And it's just musically very cute and curious just to see someone like Nora Kay doing this. At the other end, there is the most poignant one that everybody who's interested in Balanchine should go to see, which is something that only ever had one performance at the very end of the Tchaikovsky Festival in 1981. It's the Adagio Lamentoso, I think the final movement of Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony, the Pathétique. And it's Balanchine showing you one of his extraordinary dramas, such as only he could make, with angels at some points coming in from the wings. It ends with a little boy just coming to near the front of the stage with a candle, which he then blows out in the final beat of the music. And in between, hordes of different dancers coming in, sometimes in costume. And I think some of Balanchine's most beloved dancers are in it: Karen van der Rodegen, Stephanie Soland. Now, the weird thing is, I only got to see it once, I think February last year, and somebody present said, "Oh God, that was ruined by somebody yelling in the audience." And it's true that the moment it ends, you hear somebody, and you honestly can't tell whether the music ends very quietly, and the moment that is over, somebody yells, it might be boo or it might be bravo, but I can tell you it ruins the atmosphere. So guess what? I and the library's fabulous François Bernardi will be editing that, and I'll be able to edit out the noise that wrecks the mood. But it is one of Balanchine's most singular dramatic conceptions. I don't say it's great. People really argue about it when it was new. I think Clement Crisp told me that he bumped into Danilova afterwards, and she said, "Oh, you have to be Russian to appreciate that." And Clement said, "Oh, I think I do appreciate it. I think I love it." But I think Ashton was also present there, and he just referred to it as Russian merd, meaning Russian shit. So it'd be nice for us all to, without the boo or the bravo at the end, to make up our own minds.
But I wonder, there were a lot of pieces that Balanchine made that weren't received well right at the beginning. Why do we know why this piece never happened again?
I think that was simply so personal. It just seemed to be about Tchaikovsky and the festival at the end of Balanchine's life. I can't tell you, I'm just guessing that there are some ballets that aren't ever done again.
Interesting.
Ashton, at a similar point in his career, made something called Lament of the Waves, and it meant a lot to people who saw it, but it was done more than once, but after its initial season, it wasn't done. Now, of course, when everybody's almost dead, they're talking about reconstructing Lament of the Waves. Right. I wonder if they might talk about it with Adagio Lamentosa. I don't know. And I think we're getting something. I think I found something from every decade of Balanchine's life. We've had to look at it to see whether it's showable. For example, one of the dances I would like to have shown in theory was one that I saw, and I only want to show it just to see if it's any good. I think when Balanchine was alive, we were aware that some ballets were less wonderful than others. And I have to say some of those have grown since his lifetime in a way that I can't quite explain. Not many. But one that didn't seem good, and I saw it the year after the Tchaikovsky Festival, but while Balanchine was still alive, was called Hungarian Gypsy Airs. It's two Tchaikovsky music. And people really did speculate. We knew that Balanchine was starting to get ill, and people did speculate maybe that's the one that he didn't really choreograph. Maybe people helped to get that on stage in a hurry, which was more said at the Stravinsky Festival that year, 1982. Right. But I interviewed that wonderful, important dancer, Afshin Mofid, who was a rising man with City Ballet in the 1980s, both before Balanchine's death and after. And I said, "Oh, we were in Hungarian Gypsy Airs. What are your memories?" And he said, "Oh, Balanchine was very much present, and particularly for us boys, he made wonderful stuff that we just enjoyed our rehearsals so much." So that alone made me want to see it. Unfortunately, you see it on video, the rehearsal, it's just a rehearsal at Saratoga. It's interesting biographically because you can see Balanchine looks fairly fit and he gets up and shows things, but you can't really see the dance. It's filmed far too far away and it's always being interrupted and you don't hear the music. So there's another one we can't show. But, for example, something you might not even have known about from the 60s is something to jazzy Morton Gould music that he made for Suzanne Farrell called Clarinade. And that is so wacky. And Farrell, the young Farrell, is so free, dancing, if I remember rightly, with Anthony Blum. It's terrific. You can see why it wasn't so important that it needed to be revived, but you're really glad to have seen it, to see those two dancers in that shape.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She used to revive it fairly often in her own company, but I always felt like with Suzanne, there are certain ballets that she made that I find one wants a dancer that is, of course, not, it's hard to be as exceptional as Suzanne, but someone with as much of a really strong voice and artistic identity and obviously technique. So sometimes I feel like the Farrell ballets, when you see it with a dancer who's merely good, they can suffer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have had that feeling, and I think I knew the Farrell company change over the years. It honestly depended who the leading dancers were, and some of the dancers she trusted the most, let's just say, weren't my own favorites. I thought, well, you're doing the steps, and Farrell is a good enough coach. She doesn't make you a Farrell clone. She's letting you do it your way. But I just can't see that you're a terribly interesting dancer. But there were some other dancers I thought, oh, aren't you wonderful? Sometimes she'd give people real breakthroughs, not just women dancers in her own roles, but male dancers sort of coming up from the corps and soloist ranks. So I don't know. As you know, that company normally was rehearsing with 3 weeks rehearsal before its short.
Right.
So never under circumstances. But one of the rarities we may well show, I don't know if either of you has seen it on stage, is Don Quixote. Have you seen the Balanchine Don Quixote, all 3 hours of it?
I had so many friends that performed in it that were in the big revival. I think did it premiere at the Edinburgh Festival, the revival?
It came to the Edinburgh Festival, and I forget where in America and Canada it went. I think it was a co-production with the National Ballet of Canada. But I would say I don't think it worked terrifically in that. That really was a case where I thought we're seeing an important ballet without Farrell illuminating it or illuminating her role.
Yeah,
but the film, I think it's the dress rehearsal with Farrell herself on incandescent form, and you're just gobsmacked. Is that a very British expression?
It's pretty British.
It's like the right expression though for.
I mean, for me, that's my Desert Island ballet video. If I could only watch 1 minute of dance for the rest of my life, it would be Farrell in that Don Q video, because it's just so, the way Jacques D'Amboise rather, he described it as, I think that she was possessed by terpsichore, or by the demon of dance or something. He said it was just the wildest thing he's ever seen in his life.
Yeah. I have to say, I had the privilege of introducing that film, which I had never seen before, sitting beside Suzanne, because I was asked as the new critic of the Times to make a speech about her as she donated her copy of the film to the library in 2007. And then the seating was such that we sat next to each other. And it really, I mean, Suzanne didn't say a word. She was perfect. But it really made me aware how brilliantly Balanchine had brought out all the others in the company too. So you just, oh my God, Patty McBride, oh my God, Suki Shora, oh my God, Marnie Morris, and so forth. Really wonderful material. You're quite
so
right.
Fabulous.
I mean, Suzanne is astonishing. And in the audience that night, there were Balanchine dancers going back to his day, including Suki Shora, Allegra Kent, Jacques D'Amboise, I forget who else. But those 3 whom I've just mentioned, I just remember them being wide-eyed. Suki had been in it. Allegra had been around at that time, and Jacques, of course, felt so much. But the way they came up in awe at what Suzanne had been 40-plus years ago, it was wonderful to see. And just the grace and humour with which she received them,
No.
Wow. I wonder what her thoughts were when she was sitting there. I'm just thinking, as dancers, we all watch ourselves and we're like, "Whoa, this could be better." And I just I don't know. I never thought before what it's like in her mind to watch videos of herself.
Mainly, I was just, if you can pick up by sitting beside somebody, and that can be kidding yourself. Mainly, I was aware of the pleasure she got from looking at the other dancers.
Hmm.
What she was like herself, she was at her most still when she was watching herself, so I can't tell you.
Hmm.
I'm sure. I just had never thought about it before. That's funny.
You
What a
know,
special
you know,
moment.
not to take us off track or anything, but you're reminding me of a moment where um, there was the Midsummer film showing it at Lincoln Center, and I think almost everyone from the film was present. Edward, Suzanne, Allegra, Patty was not there, but I remember a moment where Suzanne took the time to compliment everyone, and it was something that I had not seen ever. And I think that that's very much tracking with what you're saying. I think she really her admiration for her peers is not something that maybe we're highly aware of. And I just thought it was such a sweet moment. She was saying something about Patty and her cobweb and that solo and how much she loved it. And it was just very endearing and not a side of
Mm.
Suzanne I've seen much.
Well, Suzanne is famously reticent, though, as somebody who has interviewed her, and as you know, published my interviews on my website, she is extremely eloquent. But she says she had to learn how to use words. And she told me a wonderful story, which is in my interviews, about Margot Fonteyn. Have I told it to you on this conversations? I can't remember the
You
dressing.
haven't. You have. I read it. I
No.
read it on your Instagram,
Well,
but
I'll
you
quickly tell
please
it
share.
again. Suzanne Farrell and Peter Martins came to Covent Garden about November 1976 for a Royal Ballet Gala. I was ill and I couldn't go, damn it. And I wasn't yet a convert to Balanchine, so maybe it would have been wasted on me. They did the Tchaikovsky pas de deux, which I guess I would have understood.
Yes.
Anyway, but there we are meeting 30 plus years later, and Suzanne said, were you there that night? And so I said, no, I'm afraid I wasn't. And she said, well, I mentioned to you because we and other international dancers came from all over the world for this gala. And at one point, we were all brought on stage at the dress rehearsal, and we kind of weren't introduced to each other, and we were. So we were all aware, but nobody had formally made us welcome to the Covent Garden stage or to the other dancers. And then we were sent back to prepare for the gala itself. And I went back feeling, she said, a little bit flat, but tried to prepare myself to give as good as I possibly could. And then there was a knock on the door. And in came the most famous ballerina in the world, beautifully dressed, of course, Margot Fonteyn, in her late 50s. They had met on and off over the years. And Fonteyn just came in and just said, I don't know if anybody has welcomed you to our opera house, but I do so. And Suzanne just said that meant so much. And now I'm at the Kennedy Center, which, of course, she was resident there for many years. She said, I'm trying to be like that to visiting companies myself. And curiously, within 6 months of her telling me that story, I heard that she did exactly that to Merce Cunningham, of all unlikely people. She went to his dressing room and just said, we're all looking forward to this so much, which wasn't the kind of way Suzanne would have behaved until that job really fell upon her.
Right. Oh, I love this
To
story.
get back to Balanchine, shouldn't we, to these dances? Something I wish we could find yet more of, and I think we could do a good PhD on, is Balanchine's full-length Baiser de la Fée.
Mm.
He made it
Oh,
after Nijinsky did the original. Ashton did one, which was much admired in 1935, sorry. But Balanchine finally got round to it in 1937. And it was obviously dear to his heart because he restaged it on the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. Danilova was in the cast. He restaged it on the Paris Opera Ballet. Tolchief, who I think had danced the fairy in the Ballet Russe, now did it with the Paris company. And then he staged it again on New York City Ballet. So it really must have mattered to him. And he kept it in repertoire at least 1952. Something I cannot yet find, and when I cross the Atlantic in late April, I'm going to be looking for it if I've got time, is a clip that I know I have seen of Tolchief as the fairy, and it is among the most thrilling and shocking and haunting things you've ever seen. It lasts a second, but the way the gypsy now appears as the fairy in her full danger to the poet is it's such a dark epiphany,
Right.
as you see. You know what a dramatic presence Tolchief has from photographs and films. Well, it's the if you haven't known what drama she could strike until you've seen that. But I cannot find this bloody clip. I am going to be showing clips of, I think, Danilova, and I am in that Baiser, and I am going to show particularly clips of Tanaka Leclerc in Nicolas Magallanes in the Pas de Deux. If I can find more, I will show. But we should have up to 10 or more minutes of Balanchine's Baiser.
Right.
Before he came back to it in the great Divertimento from Baiser, which to me is one of his greatest works, but it is something different.
Right. The clip of Tanny I've definitely seen. I think, is that not from Jacob's Pillow as well?
It is, absolutely, and it's been fitted to music, so that won't be a complete strangeness to you. But I think with the other material, that will add to it. Something. I think when we first looked at it in February 2023 in the viewing room, somebody, maybe Jared Angle, said, "Isn't it interesting? The moment you see Tanny in that dance, it's as if you've moved into the modern period. She absolutely could be dancing today. Everybody else, we chronologically could are from a certain period, but that's modern dancing. Fascinating point.
Yeah."
Something else from the 30s is Balanchine's early version of Mozartiana. And we know that he kept on rejigging that Mozartiana, but there is footage of it with Danilova wearing plumes in the theme and variations. Ostrich coming toward from her head, who knows? No, there's so much material to be shown.
Yeah.
I want to see all of it. I'm so jealous of everyone who gets to see it.
Something I suspect you two have seen, but hasn't been in City Ballet's repertory since maybe 2003, 2002, is Balanchine's Ballade that he made for Merrill Ashley. Do either of you know this?
I saw Wendy Whalen perform in 2002. That was the year that I came to the school. And of course, I saw everything. So I've seen Wendy in this ballet. I have very little memory of it, but I remember the music being quite beautiful and that Meryl had coached her in it. But other than that, I'm not quite sure what it conjures in my head.
It's a remarkable piece. I gather Meryl said it's the hardest thing I ever danced. And as you know, Meryl danced all the hardest ballets in the repertory. So it's quite something. It doesn't look mega virtuoso. I think it's just an extraordinary test of stamina and making all the virtuoso technique flow into something expressive. It is a romantic ballet made on Merrill Ashley. We looked in February 2023 at Merrill doing it, I think with Ebe Anderson, but it's not a quite satisfactory video. There are two other videos that I will be looking at. I think she does it particularly with Joseph Duell and with Sean Lavery. So I'm going to check this out, and I'm told that one of them is better. But even so, you can just see Ballade is a remarkable piece for a remarkable ballerina. Interestingly, that's one of the pieces that Farrell revived for her own company, Michael. I think I saw her did that around 2008.
Is that the only other work outside of Emeralds that Balanchine used the music of Foray for? Do you know offhand?
Offhand, I would say yes, but I could be wrong.
Right. But again, interesting choice, because Emeralds is such a distinct, iconic work in the canon, but Foray is not a typical composer that Balanchine reached for often. So yeah, I would definitely be curious to see this work again for sure. Ballade.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you feel like the audience will take away from this event. I think, everyone who's going to be there likely has seen many, many Balanchine ballets, all the greats, the ones that we know that we see on stage all the time. But how do we feel like maybe seeing some of these older films, some of these, they're very rare, like we're talking about. How could that give you maybe a different perception of Balanchine's work?
Well, first of all, I'm quickly going to mention two virtuoso pas de trois that I'm hoping to get edited into shape to show at least one of them. One is the Glinka pas de trois, and one's the Minkus pas de trois that he made one in the late 40s and the early 50s. And if we can get those looking well and maybe get them fitted to music, that would also be a revelation of period Balanchine style with strong dancers. But as you asked that question, Rebecca, I kind of imagined Tyler Peck being in my audience. She's injured at the moment, so maybe she'd come along. I would like to imagine that she'd say, look at Ballard and think, oh my God, I'd give my teeth to dance something like that. You know, it would be just
Sure.
talent for her at this stage. She's the great virtuoso in many ways of our period, and maybe Balanchine was trying to show, I think he was trying to show new facets of Merrill Ashley, and Tyler Peck might well think, that I could do just the same challenge. And of course, she and Merrill get along terribly well. So that would be something. I think some of them might have a good kind of negative effect, where people would just watch and think, oh, it's wonderful to see Balanchine as a choreographer in progress, and I'm glad I can see why they dropped this piece. This just wasn't the best in the world. Or how, particularly say with Mozartiana, I mean, Danila that has such élan and style and panache that you love looking at it. But I don't know that many people would think I'd rather see that Mozartiana than the Suzanne Farrell Mozartiana. Having said that, I know people who were in, and I'm talking about my friend Joy Brown in particular, who was in the Balanchine 1940s edition of Mozartiana, and she could never take the 1981 version because she just said, oh, the old Mozartiana had so much more drama and poetry and variety, you know. So the films we have, I don't think, and most of them, I think that Mozartiana is all silence, and it's very hard looking at Balanchine in silence,
right.
Because of course, sometimes it's the music that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Would you say, do you think that there's any anything that unites these works that have fallen out of repertoire, or were they all varied reasons? What do you think? Is there a common thread?
There isn't a common thread. The main point that I mean, maybe some genius in the audience will be able to say what the common thread is. My takeout would be the opposite, the extraordinary diversity of this man. And I think I've so often thought this with Balanchine, but I thought it even more after showing the first 2-3 hours of these films in February last year. More than being, everybody talks about Balanchine's musicality, which I sometimes think is slightly overrated. And only sometimes, of course, he's musically brilliant, but I think occasionally one or two other choreographers are as musical, or even more so. I don't mean invariably, but sometimes. But where Balanchine is, to my mind, beyond anybody else, is a dramatist. The Adagio Lamentoso is a form of drama. You think, who else in the world would have put all of this flood of romantic soul-bearing on stage? And then another piece I want to talk about, which I had been forgetting, but we've got to edit this to look better, is from the Ravel Festival, and it's a largely forgotten ballet. And I've even spoken to people who were in the original cast, and they say, I can't remember it, even though I was in it. And that's a piano ballet called Gaspard de la Nuit, which, if you listen to the music, it's some of Ravel's most amazing, virtuoso, poetic music. So hard for the pianist, though not showy. And the reason I wanted to look at it is that Edward Gorey, the famous cartoonist, whom I'm sure you know, went to more or less every performance of New York City Ballet for 30 or more years. That is a slight exaggeration, but it is astonishing how many performances he went to, and I used to meet him occasionally at those performances. I didn't know him at all well. But he told his great friend Robert Kreskovic, to me, Gaspard de la Nuit is top drawer Balanchine. That's one of the most remarkable. So I just thought, I've got to see this again. What is the big surprise is that Balanchine uses mirrors on stage. So you're seeing all kinds of reflections, with mirrors that are on the floor being turned around so you don't know what you're looking at sometimes. It's Balanchine, the master of illusion. Now, this is edited in a very odd camera version in the one that the library's got. So you're looking at it on a tiny screen within a larger screen. So I hope the great Francois Bernardi will be able to edit to make it much more visible to everybody. But I think even if it's a frustrating piece, I think we hear the music that you can just see, oh my God, Balanchine was more strangely imaginative than I had ever known. It is such a peculiar piece, and he's not just the pure dance master that we often think of him as. He's prepared to use props like mirrors to keep changing stage space. Now, of course, if you think of the finale of Vienna Waltzes, you knew that already, but still, this is a different use of mirrors.
Right.
And mirrors, by the way, are very much near the soul of Ravel, who wrote a piece called Miroir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is making me think. You mentioned, let's say Tyler Peck was sitting in the audience as a dancer. How would she be digesting these films? And she's also a choreographer as well. And maybe if there was a choreographer in the audience, I wonder how they might perceive this, to see some of these, maybe a flop, maybe ones that he didn't like, that didn't get seen again. I'm sure for choreographers, there's a huge pressure to be perfect,
As you know, the first time I did one of these conversations for you was on Serenade, and I had never met. I mean, the audience was full of ballerinas, and I, on the whole, tried not to meet the people I was writing about. Right. But Tyler Peck, who has the best banners in the world, just saw me afterwards, and she just came up and she just said, "I have to tell you, I completely loved that." And then she disappeared, which was perfect. And of course, my heart went out to her gratitude. So I would love her to be in the audience on this occasion and to know what something like Ballade would mean to her. But an audience, they will all have their different take-outs.
Right.
There'll probably be somebody from the original cast of Gaspard Delany and say, I never thought much of it then, and I don't think much. He's not. It doesn't have any great solo virtuoso roles. You're just watching something larger than the dancers.
Right.
Which can disappoint for some people. And you probably all know this. If you see Balanchine's wonderful Tombeau de Couperin, the first time you see it, you're normally disappointed because you just think there's not much for the corps to do. Then as you go on watching it, it is the most endlessly rewatchable, fascinating piece.
I've danced that for my workshop, and let me tell you, we were pretty disappointed when it was on the program. But I think I would enjoy it now. I think it was one of, as children who are graduating, you're hoping to have some sort of feature or something like that. The ballet is very subtle and very beautiful, but I think that it is a little lost on children. So I don't think even now, with years past, I don't think that I would personally program it for a workshop. But I think that Rebecca and I would have loved to dance it as senior corps members, as adults.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Even junior corps members. I think when it was first made, some of them were very junior corps. But you know what it's like in the corps. You generally feel nobody's looking at you, and you're just learning where to stand and where to do this and so forth. And apparently, when Balanchine first, do you know the story about Rosemary Dunleavy and the making of Tombeau de Couperin? I hope I got it right. I think there's more than one version. There's more than one version of this. So let's hope I'm not falsifying it. He prepared the Ravel Festival over about 6 months before it happened. And so in about September 1974, he made his first Ravel ballet, Tombeau de Couperin, for just 16 dancers from the Corps de Ballet. And they were so thrilled because this is Mr. Balanchine making something that's just for us. We're normally so overlooked, but it's just us and the man we love in a room together. And it's so beautiful and charming. And we absolutely feel how every detail matters. And then 5 months passed and the Ravel Festival was announced and the Tombeau de Couperin wasn't announced. And the corps went to Rosemary Dunleavy and said, we made this ballet with Mr. Balanchine and it's not up for performance. And she said, you're quite right. I'll go to Mr. Balanchine at once. And went to him. And he said, oh my God, I completely forgot all about it. Do you think we can remember it again? And so she went to the corps and said, do you think you can remember it? And if I help you? And they worked on it together. And then they assembled what they could, showed it to Balanchine. He was just so thrilled because there's this ballet he'd forgotten having made.
How wild.
And I was so thrilled, I was so touched that the corps and Rosemary had put it together, and I'm sure he made tweaks being Balanchine, and then it was for many people, it was the gem of the Ravel Festival, and it's the piece that's never been out of repertory since then. Mm-hmm. But originally you were watching people who were very junior in the corps, like Judith Fugit, was so adorable in that. It was her first role. And they didn't change the cast for years, so there was a point where you thought, oh, please, can you take these now very, very senior corps people out of Tombeau? I don't mean Judith Fugit, I mean military people. But when you saw it, when it was still a fairly young work, I first saw it in 79. It had a particular fragrance, and it's still like that if it's well cast. It should be cast with not too old people in the corps.
Is there a work that you're showing that you feel most makes a case for itself to be revived?
Oh, well, Ballade should be better known. It does come around once in a while. You've seen it with Duelen. I think it is time that... I think that's the one that I would most think New York City Ballet should be reviving. It hasn't been done, I think, since about 2003. That's too long. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I think everybody should be, if I show, and I'm still looking at too much material, if I show things like the double saut de basque and Ballet Imperial, I'm not saying anybody should be doing them. I just want people to know that's how it looks.
Yeah.
I've heard about this. There is the moment in Serenade that I've told you about on my first appearance in this show, when the ballerina, the Russian dancer who falls down in the first movement, Sonatina, she actually seems to die. She just lies there like a corpse. Right. And when you see death in the middle of the first movement of Serenade, you really rethink the whole ballet, actually, because, as you know, Serenade seems to be about the world of the dead and people coming back from the dead and dying and so forth. So when you see this moment of death early on, the whole drama multiplies in a different way. Right. But I'm not saying we should put it in that way. So Ballade, I think, most of all. It would be fun if somebody could now do the right dancer, as you say, Michael, the right dancer, do clarinade, early Farrell jazzy material.
Right.
But something else I do claim that I have already contributed to history in my little way. I have to show off here. But it is a Glinka ballet, Divertimento Brillante. In 1968, Balanchine made 4 Glinka pieces, including his revised Valse Fantaisie, the one that's usually done around the world now. We'll come back to Michael's version in a moment from 1950. But the 1968, he rejigged Valse Fantaisie, did 2 other Glinka ballets, and he made Divertimento Brillante, which is Glinka's orchestral and, I think, piano variations on music by Bellini. Wonderful operatic music by Bellini that I happen to know in the original. And he made it as a virtuoso pas de deux for Patty McBride and Edward Villala at their peak. I was first shown this on a video in the late 80s or early 90s by Arlene Croce. And she had a version in color, and once you see it with a blue backdrop, it takes off that bit more. And it was the best... the greatest, most phenomenal dancing I have ever seen from Edward Villala. And it was a revelation to me then. At one point, he does brise volley, and the way that his body arcs backwards and forwards in the air is so thrilling and beautiful. Patty McBride, of course, blooms beside him. So I want to show that. And Robert Greskovic has a copy with color. The library has a black and white copy, but blessings on Robert Greskovic. I think he's going to lend us the one in blue. Now, I mentioned this having a little proud claim because once when I was around, I never knew Damien Wetzel in those days terribly well, but of course I would go to the Vale Festival, as you now do, to look at the things he was putting on each year. And once, I don't know where I was, but I just mentioned something I would love to see somebody do, which was this Divertimento Brillante. Damien went off and looked at it and revived it. And I think he revived it with Tyler Peck in the Patty McBride role. And first of all, with the young Joseph Gordon in the Villala role. And then when he brought it to New York at City Center, had a brief Vale Festival season, Gordon had injured himself, so it was Robbie Fairchild did it. It's a great male role. City Ballet should return it to repertory because Tyler Peck can do it. And at the moment, there's Joseph Gordon reaching a new peak. It would be wonderful to see him.
Right. I love hearing you talk about it because I was just, as you're first introducing the ballet to our audience, my immediate thought was, yes, this is my absolute favorite video of Edward ever. And of
Oh, I'm
course,
glad
then you say that, and then the next thing I'm thinking is, oh, the brise vole, and then you mention the brise vole, which what I love about that too, there's a very distinctive port de bras there, and it's very simple. It's not unclassical or strange, but he goes back and forth when he goes brise vole front, he's in fifth position, and then he goes back and he goes to élanger. But something about it is so, it's just that amazing Balanchinian thing where he does something that surprises you and that feels so inevitable, yet of course you yourself would never have thought of, it's just such a beautiful moment in that work. And I totally agree with you that it's Edward in that is just so beautiful and striking.
Oh, thank God you agree. It's I often have moments as a critic where people say, "You thought that?" With Divertimento Brillante, I mean, it would be one. It has been seen in New York because of that Veil season that Wetzel organized, but only at City Center briefly. So I think there'll be plenty in the New York audience that won't know that pas de deux, and that's very revivable. And that brings us to Glinka, the 1953 version of Valse Fantaisie. And there are some versions that the library has, particularly with SAB doing it, but somehow they don't. I think it's just the quality of the video don't take off. And I remember just loving it with Miami City Ballet. I first saw Miami do it in 1988 when they first came to New York, Brooklyn College. And then I once came down, was it 2008 or 2009? And I saw a young dancer called Michael Sean Breeden do it 3 times with different dancers every weekend. And I was just in love with that version of the piece. And Michael, you've danced both versions, am I right, of Valse Fantaisie?
You're correct.
I think you tell me that you think the 1968 version is even better, and I think you're wrong. So here we disagree.
Well, I don't know. I think, well, the 68 version definitely has meteor dancing for the male performer. So it could be my own personal skewed view, but of course I loved dancing both of them. That was obviously a thrill, and
I feel like I can picture you on stage, doing that, and your beautiful hair, and your I could just see it all. I can see it.
Yeah, and I mean,
you may be right about the male role, and you may even be right about the leading ballerina role, and the structure of the second version is more complicated, more intricate, but something about that very simplicity of the original version, which is just one man and 3 women dancers, and what Balanchine does with that. I remember when I first saw it thinking, oh, it's a Judgment of Paris, 1 man and 3 women, just he's almost content with such ravishing choice. And the way that they sail on the music, if I remember rightly, it begins with them on the upbeat. They're jumping on the beat as the music goes, as the curtain goes up. Is that right?
Yeah, you just gave me a visceral because it's a lot of a series of grand jetés that are quite difficult, especially you repeat it at the end when you're very tired, and it can feel quite heavy. And it's also grand jeté, and you land on one leg in a coupe, which is of course more difficult. Yes. So,
but am I right that you are jumping in those grand jetés as the curtain goes up?
No, it begins with a very simple, very Balanchinian port de bras. You just do port de bras to the music, to that melody. Like it revs up, ba-rum, ba-rum, and then the curtain comes up, and then you hear the melody, da 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 da, and all you're doing is port de bras to start, and then we pick up from there. But I have to loan you the video so that I'm sitting here thinking if I remember yeah, it's some of it is very fiendishly difficult. Like for the male variation, which is quite short, you have to do assemblée battue, which is a beaded assemblée, 2 legs. You push up 1, beat it in the air, and land on. Typically, you land on 2 legs, but on this, you land on 1 and immediately go to the knee. So it's very thigh heavy. It's very difficult in that way. It actually, in some ways, as a performer, feels more Russian in a sense of the way that someone like Rebecca and I think of Russian. Of course, Balanchine was Russian,
Right.
but Balanchine feels very light, even when it's very difficult. But
Mhm.
this because of those grand jetés landing in coupe and the beaded ensemble that goes to the knee, it feels more heavier
Heavy.
than what you might think of as Balanchine. So maybe that's part of why, as a performer, I enjoyed the lighter version.
Well, I would think so much would depend on tempo and the trick of where you catch the beat. My thrill with the Miami performances that you danced in, Michael, and the women with you, I think the women changed between the performances, so I probably saw two casts of women. But was the timing just how often that was how Balanchine likes dancers to be already catching the beat so that you don't see them go up on the beat, but they're already there on the apex of the jump at that beat. And it catches your heart in a particular way. And to that music, as you say, is just so singable and irresistible.
Just for our last question, I was wondering if you're mentioning some of these films that you've seen, but you won't be presenting because, for example, they are rehearsal footage where it's paused, people talk. Do we see an opportunity to kind of put some of this technology to use where we sort of edit it together to, take those pauses out, maybe to give us a little bit of an idea? Is that something that might be of interest in the future to you in the library?
That's frightening. It's almost as if you're proposing the AI Balanchine.
AI Balanchine.
There's something I haven't dared to see in London where you can go, I think you pay well into 3 figures, but there's something called ABBA, the phenomenon, where you see amazing 3D reproductions of ABBA singing songs I think they never sang, but it is so real that it's a very great theatrical experience. Who knows what people might try doing with Balanchine now? It's frightening, isn't it?
Wow. That's until this moment, I haven't thought of it because it's actually quite common now on the internet, on the World Wide Web, where if a famous pop artist, let's say Beyonce, releases a new song, and then 2 seconds later you get the Miley Cyrus version of the song. But I don't know why until this very moment I had not thought of what if there's a future where Alexei Ratmansky makes a new ballet, and then it's it gives you Suzanne dancing Alexei. I mean, I might be down for that. Sorry, Suzanne. Sorry.
Patent pending.
Isn't it curious? And you wonder what AI could teach about Balanchine's style, because I've of course many times seen how you can fit silent films to music and it can be satisfying, and other times you think, no, it's just that bit off the music and it spoils everything.
Right.
And with Balanchine musicality, that would matter more than anybody. But at the same time, when you see, for example, the Gods Go A-Begging pas de deux, you're not going to be too hypersensitive because you don't know how originally it did fit the music anyway. Just to have some Handel music fitted to it is very satisfying and helpful. So it's a nice balancing act juggling act as to how one fits music and gets it right or wrong.
Right.
I do know that François Bernardi, the wonderful film person who the library gets in to help with these things, I can't say he can answer the issue of Balanchine musicality, but God, what an artist he is, the trouble he takes to try to get things fitted.
Oh, cool. Does he have a dance background?
No, he's just got a very good ear that way, And I sometimes and I'm fairly particular, but I learnt when we did a Swan Lake session with him how many hours we put in just to try to get one Ivanov dance in Act 4 fitted to the music. And occasionally I'd say, that's as good as we could do. Right. And then I was aware that Swan was just going on when I'd left the room. He would not let it alone.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Cool. Maybe we should talk to him. That sounds very interesting to hear about.
The library brings him in for all kinds of things, so he probably would be able to talk about all kinds of dance, I think. I'll ask him.
Okay, that'd be great, yeah.
Future episode.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alastair, for joining us. We always love having you on, and we hope that all of our friends in New York will come out and view the Balanchine Rarities with you.
I hope you'll be able to come on May 6th, Michael. And Rebecca, well, too bad you're not in New York, but
I know.
Let me know if you're flying up and we'll smuggle you in.
I wish. Let's live stream it. Let's talk about. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
No, but this is great to give those of us who can't be there. We got a little bit of a preview from you, and we know the audiences will love it and get so much out of seeing all these incredible films you've put together. Thank you, Alastair.
Thank you. Bye.
Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.